Okay, so good afternoon once again. My name is Vince Bernal. I am one of the Board of Trustees as a member of AMRPP, or Association of Maintenance and Reliability Practitioners of the Philippines. As you can see, we are duly registered by SEC with the SEC registration number, as you see on the screen, since last year. So it has been a little over a year that AMRPP has been established, and I am always grateful for the support of practitioners as well as the Board of Trustees who heed our call. No? Siyempre, alam ko mga busy tayo lahat, but these brave, committed, and practitioners who have shared vision with me to start this AMRPP. And I'm hoping to have the rest to join us in a while. So I would like to take this opportunity to start our webinar so I guess you've seen our video, okay? Maybe we can do a last round. Okay, so as you can see, dear participants, that we have been doing meetings virtually. We've also done our first kickoff meeting, kickoff membership meeting, where we had the first oath taking. So we're hoping for the next batch of our official members to join us in person so we can do our oath taking. At this point, I would like to invite everyone to join me as we honor the beloved national anthem. As proud citizens, let us come together virtually to pay tribute to the symbol of our nation's strength, unity, and pride. Thank you. And please join me as we share with you our prayer. We gather here today as members of an association united by a common mission and mission. We seek your guidance and blessings as we embark on our journey to become the premier organization for physical asset management, maintenance, equipment reliability, and asset integrity. With reverence in our hearts, we humbly ask for your support in fulfilling our vision. Help us promote and advance the application of knowledge in physical asset management, maintenance, reliability, and integrity in our beloved country. Grant us the wisdom to develop and promote best practices that will elevate the standards of our industry. Grant us the strength to face challenges with resilience and determination. Bless our association with unity, cooperation, and a shared purpose. May our gatherings be filled with productive discussions, meaningful connections, and the exchange of knowledge and experiences. As we move forward, we ask for your continuous guidance and protection. May we remain steadfast in our commitment to excellence, integrity, and the betterment of our profession. Help us to embrace change, adapt to new technologies, and constantly innovate in the field of physical asset management. We offer this prayer with utmost gratitude, knowing that with your divine intervention, we can achieve remarkable milestones and make a lasting impact on the industry that we serve. Amen. Okay. So at this point, I would like to welcome those who have just joined us. Welcome to our webinar series number one for asset management. So today, before we move to the webinar, I just like to share with you our vision as an association and our mission on how we plan to achieve our vision for the AMRPP. Together with our board of trustees, we have envisioned this, and we would like to invite everyone to join us as we realize this vision. So as mentioned, together with our Board of Trustees, I think present dito, no? Sino bang nandito sa atin? We have Ding Dong, we have Jason, Mark, and myself, right? So there. So again, thank you so much for your initiative and sharing the vision with us. We have set of executive committee. So yeah, at your service as the president, myself, Vince Bernal. We have our VP for Internal Affairs, Mark David K, who's also going to facilitate our webinar today. We have our Vice President for External Affairs, Jason Mendoza, our Treasurer, Junjun Benito, our Auditor, Dingdong Altarejos, and our Corporate Secretary, Glenn Pamplona. Well, unfortunately, he's not able to join us because of he's a little bit under the weather, but he is full support on our webinar. We'd also like to acknowledge our official members, no? So these are our official members of the date. So you can see that we would like to increase our membership, and we would like to invite you to be an official member now. As an official member, you have the option to be as an individual member, where as long as you are a practitioner that is engaged in asset management, asset maintenance, equipment reliability, and asset integrity, you are more than welcome to be part of this association. If you think your company can also benefit in being a member of this association, we also encourage that you recommend us so we can invite them to be part of the association as an executive member committee. So if their organization is the employees, practitioners in the field of asset management, maintenance, equipment reliability, and asset integrity, we would like to invite them to be part of the association as an executive member company. Or you may also would like to refer to a supplier who provides solutions, technology solutions, services. This can be in an individual, in a company, or an organization. which provide goods and services in supporting the asset management, maintenance, equipment reliability, and asset integrity that is AMRPP is would like to cover. So membership is in a way provides them network opportunity to network among practitioners and also share their technologies and solutions and services. So hopefully those who are here who are not yet an official member, we encourage you to join us in this endeavor and share our vision uh, as an association. Is there anything else that our Board of Trustee members would like to add on this before we transition to our um, webinar for today?
I'm good, Vince. Thank you.
All right, sige. So on this note, I would like to um, transition now to our webinar. So our webinar series number one is about asset management roadmap to ISO 55000 compliance. It's an overview for our webinar, and to facilitate our webinar for today, we have engineer Mark David Ke. And Mark has more than a decade of expertise in design engineering and managing physical assets. He has taken part in a number of internal cross-functional teams and is heavily involved in business process optimization. Mark is a key player in a sizable CMMS plant asset digitization initiative involving thousands of physical assets. He is a manager and engineer with significant experience in the oil and gas and water utility sectors. Mark has received certification as a practitioner in asset management and maintenance from several international organizations. In 2018, he became the first Filipino to be certified as an asset management assessor by WPIAM. So currently, he is an asset manager for Manila Water Company and holds the following areas of knowledge and certification that include Certified Practitioner in Asset Management by AM Council of Australia, Certified Maintenance and Reliability Professional by SMRP, a Certified Asset Management Assessor by CAMA or by WPIAM. He is a licensed mechanical engineer by PRC, a Certified Project Management Professional, and a Certified Lean Six Sigma Black Belt. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to invite everyone to welcome our facilitator for today's webinar, Engineer Mark David Ke. Okay, Mark, I'll transition the presentation to you. Mark, you are still on mute.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. So hopefully my video and audio is going through okay. Yeah, thank you, especially everyone that's attending today. I know Saturday is supposed to be family time and you've taken your time here away. I hope that this time would be beneficial for you. Original duration of the seminar program is up until I believe 3, so we've reserved quite a bit of time for the Q&A after the seminar proper or the presentation proper. As an AMRPP member, this is one of our promise to you in which we're offering a webinar series. This would be the first of the series. So I believe this will be recorded and stored on the archive on our website. Is that right, Vince?
Yes, Mark, this is being recorded as of the moment, and it
Oh,
will be shared to all the members and publicly shared on our YouTube channel.
that's good. So for our new members, just coming into asset management, this was a good way to actually know what asset management is, especially for us, which in which we tackled asset management as first. We've actually needed to learn it outside of country, so sometimes it gets pretty much expensive. Um, Let me see and try share my screen now. Hopefully, you should be able to see my screen. Yep, hope it's going through.
Yep, it's okay now.
Yep, thank you. So this would be the first webinar series of I don't know. I think it will go. I don't know, probably like a dozen or so. First part of the webinar series will go through generally what asset management is. And typically at this kind of phase, I guess half of us would be like expert practitioner already on asset management, especially in the Philippines. But for the relatively new ones out there that doesn't realize yet the scope of asset management, then we're here to inform you that. Now, of course, asset management has like several parameters. If you take a look at study, they can vary from four based from ISO 55, such as leadership assurance, to around 39 elements, depending on which document you refer to or which organization you refer to in terms of asset management. What we'll talk about here, this simple, a short summary. We'll talk about asset management in general. As I said, it's an overview. Strictly speaking, if we go into the detail, we'd likely use up the entire day. Our coverage expands from asset management, leadership, culture, policy and planning, and implementation, probably making of asset management plan. Typically, contents of our talk today would follow. First, we'll do an introduction in asset management. Then we'll go to organizational context and leadership. And this is how we do an asset management policy plan, what factors do we need to consider, business process, table of organization. Then afterwards, we move on to asset management policy. So normally the policy is like 1-2 page document, but that would really depend on which industry or sector you are or how detailed your asset management plan is. Because normally outside of country, normally when you say asset management, there is a clear cut reason on why you pursue asset management, be it regulatory, be it foreign outside financing or investors, or maybe it may even be internal drivers such as optimization, quality, and efficiency. Afterwards, that we do the proper asset management planning, and this covers entire asset lifecycle management, which is five. So your AMP, your asset management plan, should involve which assets to consider, how detailed do you want to record it, your KPIs, your continuity, your monitoring, your optimization, and so on. Then afterwards, we go to number 6, performance evaluation. And here we realize that in implementing an ISO, as with any ISO, I'm pretty sure that Moses is familiar with ISO 9000, 14,000, or 18,000. And those typically ISO would refer like you have your plan, do, check, act cycle, and eventually you do monitoring optimization. And finally, at last, we go through ISO 55 standards. And here we'll talk about, is it really necessary to do compliance, alignment, certification? So there would be a multitude of ways on how to approach ISO 55. Okay. So just to give everyone a big picture overview, we're kind of like building this. We're going to do asset management foundation first, which is our number one topic. Next, we go on to leadership, management, business framework, and then policy, lifecycle management, performance evaluation, and then ISO 55K. So based on the content, you can already kind of get an idea. This talk would mostly concentrate on asset management, business processes, governance, modes of implementation, stakeholders, risks and business continuity, those type of topics. Now, as we go further along with this webinar series, then we'll go into the much more technical detail, such as maintenance, reliability, and how do we go about using it on our tool set, such as if you're using a CMMS, and those can be either Maximo or SAP, or maybe an internal software. Okay, so hope everyone is ready. I think I used most of the time just on the introduction. Okay, so how about let's start introduction to asset management. So this talks about overview of asset management, including purpose, benefits, key concepts. Now, during the mode of the presentation, feel free to post your question on the chat, I may ask some question about after each of our sections, such as section 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, such as introduction, change management, and this is how what you can actually see on the bottom of the screen. So we have a table of contents. Now, the presentation may get a little wordy, but I actually patterned it to be like that because I'm assuming most of us here would be engineers, technical point person, and we would most likely prefer those as well. Plus, it would be good for notes. Now, if the wordy style of presentation isn't doing it well for you, please feel free to inform us and we'll reflect that as we go further along on our webinar series. Okay. So first, purpose of asset management. So typically, there are several. This gives a brief picture view of why you are pursuing asset management. Typically, you're going to get a list of benefits and recommendation. This is also stated on ISO 55 as well, such as maximizing asset value, benefits, systematic and coordinated activities through which you optimally manage your assets and asset systems, including design, acquisition, operation, maintenance, renewal, salvaging, disposal. This to ensure your overall vision for your asset management on your business. And of course, you want to ensure effective application of asset management. And this is asset management is a journey. It would be long term. So it would come on optimization, renewal activities, long term funding strategies, and long term performance. So in here, you get the big picture that in terms of asset management, you're already touching on business continuity, risk management, as well as handling and managing your assets. Benefits of asset management are plenty. Those include improved finances, asset-related decision, improved services, outputs. There's most of it would be in terms of maintenance, reliability, availability, in which you do maintenance and repair, extend asset life, improve safety, and increase overall efficiency. There are several paths on actually pursuing asset management, as I said. And normally, to give you a real life example on a business type setting, most here in Philippines, if you're doing asset management, you're most likely going on to the optimization and efficiency route. And those would most likely devolve into, if speaking of physical assets or equipment, those would most likely devolve into your spare parts management or maintenance optimization or your corrective maintenance and preventive maintenance ratio. Now, outside of country, because the environment there is much more grand, reasons for pursuing asset management would also include a better visibility towards investors, because your competition would most likely be having an ISO 55K certification for alignment or compliance as well. There's also regulatory requirements as well to consider in pursuing ISO 55000. So these are some of the values, some of the terms or items that you consider in the pursuit of asset management. So we move forward. Definition of assets. Now, assets are resources with economic value that an individual, corporation, or country owns or controls with the expectation that it will provide a future benefit. So this can be like anything under the sun that can provide your company value. For us, that may be a bit too broad because those encompass tangible and intangible assets. But for the specifics of this this seminar talk, let's concentrate on physical assets for now, which are our facilities and our equipment. So next, in the context of asset management, assets are managed systematically throughout their life cycle to ensure they are fit for purpose and support effective asset management practices. And the key term here is to remember that since the scope of asset management can be anything under the sun, it would be better to ensure that your asset management policy, your plan, your roadmap all follow the mission and vision of your company, as well as what you expect on your assets to perform, like in the short term, like next 3 to 5 years, or in the next 7 to 10 years, or eventually thereafter. So asset management is a really long journey. So at least we start, then we optimize it per year, and eventually we're going to get there. Types of assets, just to give everyone a common dictionary. This includes physical assets such as buildings, equipments, and vehicles, financial assets such as stock, bonds, and cash, intangible assets such as patents, trademarks, copyrights. This may also include like concession agreements or contract for operation, even though your assets are not, you actually do not have ownership of the asset. This also includes natural resources such as land, minerals, oil reserves, human resources such as employees, skills, and knowledge, and so on. So, aside from the physical assets that we need to monitor, I'd also like to emphasize human resources because asset management also include people, process, tools, and there would be people there. So those would be the top three. And people would mean you need to have the proper people to carry out your culture, your vision, and your day-to-day operations, as well as business governance and management. Going through asset life cycle stages. Typically, an asset we acquire at the beginning, project creation, or design phase. So during the planning stage, organizations identify the asset needs and develop a plan for acquiring and using them. And this also includes in procurement, financial. So if you're looking at asset management, it's most likely across within division departments, and especially if you're utilizing a tool such as an SAP or Maximo or something else, it also encompasses the design phase, the procurement phase, as well as the testing commissioning phase, and operation maintenance and so on. So during the design phase, it may be up to you on how much, and this is where the planning on um, the performance of your asset is, or how long do you actually expect your asset to last. So for example, in acquiring, let's say, a pump or a motor, which most businesses have, you actually have the option to either um, get a really good, high quality, over designed pump from a manufacturer, or get one that can easily fit your bill, but you currently are unsure on how much the maintenance costs, or how much the maintenance frequency will be, or how long the equipment will last. So this kind of gives like a big picture on the stages. Do you want it to be really good, like cheap, easy to replace but expensive to maintain in the long run? Or is your capital expenditure okay? You get one that is really expensive but really high quality, but doesn't actually require a lot of maintenance. So next, after the planning, you do the acquisition stage. Assets are procured, constructed, and according to plan. And here we talk about, okay, once we get the asset, we're most likely going to be considering warranties. And the warranty coverage would, how does your warranty coverage state? Is it when you actually installed the asset, or when the asset was first started or operated? So those would be up to consideration, as well as your insurance as well. And next, during the use stage, assets are operated to deliver service or goods that are valued by stakeholders. Of course, stakeholders would be us alongside our customers. And here we go to the operate and maintain stage. And this constitutes a large chunk of our costs. Going through other literature, this may vary, but it's a close approximation. If you follow the Pareto principle, it's around 80% just on the operate and maintain stage. Now, in the maintenance stage, assets are maintained to ensure they remain fit for purpose and support business objectives. That's good. Then you do and that's where you do the KPIs, the monitoring, because you can actually have a running equipment, but it can be listed as functional failure. For example, if we have a pump that is not delivering the required capacity, or MLD, or liters per second, then that can be classified already as a functional failure. Of course, there are options. You also need to consider that if your product of value is high enough, you may want to consider actually preempting and replacing it before that happens. And finally, disposal stage, assets are disposed of or replaced at end of their useful value. And those would be either an outright disposal, an outright salvaging, to even if you want to actually renew, such as your rewindings of motors, which can be good enough depending on your use. So here our introduction, we're actually kind of like getting a big picture already. If we're going to do an asset management policy or plan or document proper, and the people that we're actually going to put into our asset management group or to monitor our assets or our facilities, we kind of get the picture of the scope that we're looking. So this would be a multidisciplinary, multi-engineering discipline, as well as business procurement, finance, and IT approach. So, role of asset management in the organization. Um, Assets are managed effectively, reduce costs, extend asset life, improve safety, reliability of assets, increase overall efficiency, fit for purpose, and support business objective. Asset management is strategic and analytical approach to management of the business's assets. And on the last part, analytic approach to management of business assets, that's kind of the reason that if you're going out of scope on Philippines, maybe Philippines in future, asset management may be put as I don't know, maybe a regulatory requirement similar to what other countries experience, or may be required as part of attracting foreign investors to the company or foreign shareholders to the company. Okay. That's it for our introduction. Next up, we go to change management. If there's any question, I can open up the chat a bit. Maybe we can have like a short 3 minutes. Are there any questions?
There are no questions as of the moment, Mark, but I would like to reiterate to our audience if they have questions, pwede ninyong i-type dito sa chat and then we can attend to our questions at the end of the webinar.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Erwin. Thank you, everyone. There's a small group, so that's actually nice. This would be like the good number of participants, especially on AM. So we continue on organizational context and leadership. So in here, I'd like to emphasize that asset management touches on several disciplines and departments, procurement, IT, as well as your maintenance operations, your overall business governance, and especially your IT systems and tools. So in implementing asset management, normally what we expect here in the Philippine setting is that if we're going to implement AM asset management, our current company is most likely considering asset management, but currently don't have the stance yet if asset management would be of good value. But what you already know that most likely you already have a maintenance and operations, a reliability integrity group, because most of our facilities or most of our industry sector here, such as power, aircraft, transportation, water utility, electrical, and so on. Those would are capital intensive types of industries. So in implementing asset management, there would need to be a change. There would need to be a clear cut. Okay, if we're implementing asset management, what would be the very clear goals that we need to pursue in the short term or on the long term? What is the primary reason of implementing asset management? Is it solely for upskilling, like maintenance, reliability, then putting them up on the pedestal that they can have a big picture view of the business and company, such as they can make their maintenance philosophy or strategy, especially if your asset or facilities are spread out to the country. It can be on maintenance reliability. It can also be on integrating maintenance reliability with the proper tool and skill set, as well as doing knowledge cascade, so limiting the turnover and doing a career path for your employees. You can also include there maybe development of your tool, such as your CMMS, SAP Maximo, or other. Or maybe you already have the tool, but you want to improve it up a notch by involving the finance control or even involving the projects, which is the project initiation or the greenfield projects into your asset management plan. And eventually, after that, you're likely going to draft an asset management policy, plan, and your specific milestones for this year, next 5 years, and what the business shareholders, stakeholders can expect. Maybe improve efficiency, um, better response to problems, lower firefighting, tighter spare parts management, and so on. And leaders would need to do that as well. So here, I believe, I think on my last two companies that I've been with, they would prefer or recommend that asset management group would have like a buy-in or voting power at the top. So it's either be a C level at the top that's directly reporting to upper management, or most likely a committee reporting to upper management, or just off on the side dotted line on your organization chart, but also have the influence to facilitate the change. Now, in doing so, leadership would craft an asset management policy that aligns with ISO 55000 standards. Of course, there are several models that you can follow. ISO 55000 is just one of them. And likewise, I believe that ISO 55000 is the simplest one if you're looking for certification. And those would be on several routes. If either you want to do alignment, compliance, or certification, if you go with the certification route, you're most likely going to engage with ISO 55000 as the best. If you're doing it in terms of maintenance reliability approach, and it's okay not to get certified yet, then other models or reference can be of use to you. So feel free to ask that on our members, our senior board of directors, or maybe Erwin or our marketing team. Maybe if you want to do consulting or want to ask a specific question on which models would be best fit. Now, looking at ISO 55000, we mostly will need to comply with shell requirements, that SHALL requirements on ISO. That would be similar to how we complied with ISO 9000, ISO 14000, and ISO 18000. Most companies would most likely already have an internal audit team, so they would be well familiar on how to manage ISO. But in doing asset management, there would need to be an additional level up. Specifically, the one doing the auditing would need to know what asset management is, the requirements of asset management, as well the policy and the plans, and what the company needs or your company needs in order to comply with ISO 55. So as we can see here, typically ISO 55 is separated into forward, introduction, scope, normative references, terms and definition. Those would be the standard as with any ISO. Then you delve into context of the organization, the leadership, planning, support, and there's specific bullets for that. And afterwards, there's support, operations, performance evaluation, and improvement. And these are typical of ISO, as with any ISO. And we simply need to take out lamest terms, easiest one to explain, is we get the shell requirements, SHALL, we comply, and for that we can deem ourselves aligned or in compliance with ISO 55. Of course, there needs to be documentation, business process, actual accountability, and as well as delegation of responsibilities. But this would be the gist of it. So in summary, doing the ISO, this would follow the typical plan, do, check, act on ISO. In the planning phase, you do the context of the organization and leadership. This is where the culture comes in. This is where the policy comes in. Next, you do the planning. This is where the asset management plan or document or milestone comes in. Next, you do the support. This comes in information, your tools, your CMMS. And here, typically, if you have heard of the term, the so-called single source of information or digital twin model of your facilities or equipment, or ensuring that every facility or equipment has an as-built, proper documentation, proper equipment date sheet, 52-week maintenance plan, and so on. Those would encompass this. Number eight, you have your operations, planning, control, management of change, sourcing. This also includes your manpower, the skill sets required doing for the job, and their day-to-day or day in the life of operation. Afterwards, you have your performance evaluation. Here comes in your KPIs, your metrics, your internal auditing. And this is, I say, would be the most important bit, because without this, you cannot do number 10, which is your improvement. And this is how we get good value out of asset management. So typically, asset management really is a long journey simply because of the fact of the scope of asset management, which not only encompass maintenance reliability, integrity, reliability, availability, your KPIs and metrics. It also encompass other business units such as procurement, project creation, your design, your IT system, your manpower in HR, your knowledge cascade in training, and as well as some other. And this is typically represented on your CMS tools as your SAP FI, SAP CO, SAP MM, SAP PM, and SAP PS. So for those in the know, those would be SAP modules, finance, control, material master, project system, and your plant maintenance module of your SAP. And there can be supplementary modules as well, such as if you have doing data collection, if you're doing Power BI for your reporting, or and so on. Okay. So next slide, organizational culture. I'd like to emphasize the value of culture. Remember on the previous slide, we're doing 9 and 10, which requires monitoring and improvement. And this is typically cannot be done by a single person, stakeholder, or entity alone. This will need to be implemented throughout the entire organization. So for example, if you're doing or building a good, proper maintenance culture, then those would encompass everybody else, which means leaders need to carry the culture and vision needs to be properly relayed, those information properly relayed to the shop floor, to the people doing the work, to the people delegating or doing the planning, scheduling, the 52-week maintenance plan, and so on. And of course, in doing change management, you need to consider this is just a sample model. I believe there's several models available online on the web. Feel free to look. Typically, I'm assuming that your company already have a change management personnel, and those would most likely sit with HR or business continuity. But in this, typical change management is that you need to know the dissatisfaction, meaning the dissatisfaction of the current state, so that your stakeholders would likely move on to something that is better, to something that encompasses a bigger picture, to something that can deliver good value to your company more. Next, you also need to know the vision, and this includes what the leaders envision on your asset management or your maintenance and reliability integrity group, what your leaders would want you to accomplish within the short term and the long term, and how does that relate to the balance sheet in which your shareholders, your board, or your customers are doing or have. And of course, you need to have the first steps in which you need to ensure that your people are given proper training, proper tools, and proper time. And all of these multiplied should be greater than the resistance to change. Now, just getting one of these off the equation would most likely make it harder for you to implement the change. This includes implementing a good asset management team, asset management policy, or asset management plan in the long term. This doesn't only encompass asset management, this also encompass if you're implementing a good maintenance reliability culture in your company. Okay, I hope this section on change management is very informational to all. Next, we move on to asset management policy. And management policy, we talk about requirements such as business objective, risk management, continuous improvement, and other scope that needs to be included on asset management policy. So before we talk about an introduction, a big blanketed statement of what asset management is, what assets are. Then we move on to proper change management as well as proper leadership. Now we're finally moving on to asset management policy. And on this phase, we give an idea, okay, what do we actually need to consider in our asset management policy? So an asset management policy is typically a 1 or 2 pager document that we give out to all of our employees within the organization. And this is like 1 2 pages, and this encompasses like your mission, your vision, your goal, who is affected by asset management, and what do you see in asset management like in the next short term or 5 years. Of course, we base it on ISO 55. That would be the closest model that we have. Also, the simplest one to implement if you're doing certification. Likewise, if you're not on certification but more on the alignment or compliance cap, you can also look into either PAS 55, that will be publicly available specification 55. You can also look into specific book of knowledge from SMRP or other organization or DIM. You can also ask around within the AMRPP, our organization, and I believe we will also talk about it in our further webinar series. And I believe our dream in AMRPP is eventually we're going to have an AMRPP book of knowledge to guide our members. So hope to hope to realize that one in the near future. So scope of asset management. This includes your organization mission, vision, goals, objective, needs, and expectation. This will also need to include planning, procurement, deployment, maintenance, and salvaging. Also need to include and consider relevant laws, regulations, or standards related to asset management. And the scope should be clear and essential to ensure that all stakeholders, us, the doers, the customers, the shareholders, understand which assets are included in the system and how they will be managed throughout their life cycle. So on this, we need to kind of like scope out which assets to consider. If the asset is like, I know, consumable, less than 5,000 pesos, you need to consider if you need to add it on your system or not. Those kind of things. Your asset management plan, your policy should also coincide with your business objectives, which includes alignment to your organization mission, vision, goals, critical to achieving business objectives, criticality, um, the most, let's say, urgent or equipment that cannot be left shut down, your unplanned maintenance, those things need to consider as well. And finally, a clear guidance on how assets will be managed. So the policy should establish clear roles and responsibility, asset management, maintenance guy, operations guy. You can meld them, but the roles should be clearly defined. Your IT system, your master data governance, your procurement, your insurance, and those should need to be fit for purpose and effective in your asset management policy or plan. Okay. So that's it for our policy. We've tried to cover everything, but I'm hoping this would be enough to get started on your 1 or 2 pager asset management policy. Next, we move on to asset management plan. So we've done the introduction on asset management. We've laid the foundation. We already know what leadership requirements are involved. We already have done the asset management policy, which needs to be aligned with ISO 55K, which records which type of asset as well as our long-term objectives. Now we need to do our asset management planning. And asset management planning would comprise of who will actually be the responsible or accountable individual in implementing your policy. And in development of an asset management plan, we understand that it aligns with ISO 55K. It will include the mission, vision, and goals and objective of the company. It would also include important or critical or high risk assets that are critical to achieving business continuity, our business objectives, and our strategies. And we need to effectively maintain or manage those assets throughout the life cycle. This includes your maintenance strategy, your philosophy, your reliability, your salvaging, your everything else. So, quite blanketed statement, but this encompassed a lot. Your asset management plan should also establish performance metrics to measure effectiveness of asset management practices in supporting business objectives. This includes your KPIs and your monitoring. For KPIs, we'll talk about it later on the slide. For those who have seen the SMRP, be okay. It's just like 300 pages of KPIs. You need to choose which one would be much more applicable to your business or industry sector because each industry is unique. Likewise, each benchmarking or each world-class criteria would be unique depending on which industry sector you are. Here, we need to identify our assets, identifying assets, life cycle stages that are relevant to the organization, such as planning, procurement, deployment, maintenance, and retirement. And if you have a CMMS or tool, you need to consider if during project creation stage, that upon submission of the asset count, you want it to have a seamless transition to your operation and maintenance CMMS tool. So this includes your asset registry and your asset hierarchy, as well as their functional location and your specification of assets. Those would need like you need to do data population at initial phases or stages. Next, you assess the risks, you prioritize the asset or equipment. Which asset would need to have a higher control? For example, I'm from water utility. We would like to ensure that all pumps and motors, as well as VFDs, are good and well and functioning. And all equipments tied to those would also need to be good, well, and functioning as well. So you need to have a critical list of equipments. Next, we set up objectives on what equipments, what are expectation for the equipment. If you do failure analysis, this would include there as well. Which assets you have, what would happen if they fail, and what would be the mitigation plan for those assets if they fail. Or if you don't want them to fail, you may likely want to have like a critical spares inventory, which is outside of your original spare parts inventory. And that critical spares inventory, you just keep it full, such as in an effect, an emergency happens and your equipment shutdowns, you have the materials to instantly repair it in your downtime wouldn't last a couple of hours, which would be manageable for your organization. Next, you monitor performance, your KPIs, your efficiency, as for the assets, as well as some others such as knowledge, cascade. If you're needing like monitoring services or monitoring type of maintenance, condition-based maintenance, then you may need to consider upskilling your personnel such as vibration, thermography, or some other type of special training that you need to do. Now, tying all of this up in, we see our asset management plan. This is like a typical roadmap or typical structure of asset management plan. This doesn't encompass all on the asset management landscape, but this should be enough to have you started. You need to develop an asset registry first. You assess the condition and failure modes, determine the expected life expectancy and cycle, determine the replacement costs, the insurance, procurement, warranty information, the target level of service, because that would define if your equipment has attained functional failure or it would still be okay to refurbish or so on. Determine business risk criticality. Can you have that equipment down or can you not? You optimize your O&M or your operation and maintenance investment in the long run. Then you optimize your capital investment in the long run, determine your funding strategy, and then you build your asset management plan. Here, you really need to have the change management leadership type of buy-in because this will encompass the um, upper echelons of your company. This would encompass your shareholders because major part of most capital intensive asset intensive companies would be their assets or their maintenance assets. Okay, thank you. So now we're on number 5. Okay, we still have quite a good bit of time. I guess we can go to how about it is are there any questions? Um,
Yes, Mark, there is one question on the chat which
yeah,
asks, are SMEs, small medium enterprise, I suppose that's what it means, Can
Mhm.
also consider to adopt 55,000?
For me, I'd say yes, but we need to first look at the context. If you're a small medium enterprise, you're most likely here, and you're here in the Philippines. Is it up to that level yet that you need to consider ISO 55? So if not, then you most likely have your maintenance and reliability. Then the next question there is your maintenance reliability enough? If it's enough, then you can likely delay the ISO 55. If not, then you most likely want to expand your maintenance and reliability. And those would include your risks, your business continuity, safety, depending on what specific objectives your organization has. And as well as the skill set of your personnel, as well as if you want to get good tools on your maintenance and reliability, such as SAP, CMMS, or other. So you need to consider those. Now, upon considering that you need to expand your maintenance and reliability, that would depend on what your business objectives would want in the long run or value that they would get. They would most likely have a plan or a vision for the company. Then you need to consider what adopt 55,000 is for you, because in adopting 55,000, there are three approaches. You can do alignment, you can do compliance, and you can do certification. Alignment is the lowest one, in which you try to align to the process of the ISO 55, which means you have the ISO 55,000 document, you see the shell requirements, and you ensure that for each shell requirements on that document, you have a process for that on your company. Now, those can be separated, but it's good enough that you have. Compliance means that those processes, shell processes in ISO 55, you have considered and you have put, let's say, an asset management group to manage those. It can be, feel free if you want to do a committee or if you want to do an auditing team, but most likely it will sit with maintenance and reliability. Now, compliance means you can certify, but you just haven't certified yet. So there would be cost saving because certification would also cost. So those would be things that you need to consider. But yeah, hope this answered your question, Sir Edwin. And yeah, welcome. And no more, then we can move on. So number five, we do asset lifecycle management. And lifecycle management encompasses, well, your asset lifecycle from design, procurement, testing, commissioning, operate, maintain, salvaging. This includes condition assessment, life cycle costing, risk assessment, prioritization, and performance measurement. So managing different stages of an asset life cycle, you can manage it during the design stage. Do you want it to be over designed or just okay to your design needs? A good part of it is most, if you're familiar with welding, you may want to take a look at proper installation, such as if you're doing stainless steel, such as lower corrosion down the line, as well as on installation of pipelines. You want to ensure that their beds are properly how do you handled and up to spec design stage. Next, you do the acquisition stage, crucial to ensure that assets are procured at reasonable costs and meet quality standards. You also need to consider procurement and warranty information, as well as if those information would need to be recorded on your CMMS or your SAP or your Maximo system. During the operation stage, it's essential to monitor asset performance. This includes your KPIs, your metrics. Your maintenance stage, crucial to ensure assets are maintained effectively to minimize downtime and extend their useful life. This would be on maintenance reliability, and this would get to be discussed in detail as we go along with this webinar series. So feel free to tune into that. Finally, at the disposal stage, essential to dispose of assets in an environmentally responsible manner. And this would include your salvaging, your refurbishment, and so on. If you're if there's also a new term on the block, which is net zero or greenhouse gas emission zero by 2050, it may get included here as well. So just keep an open mind in implementing asset management. Next, you do asset identification and classification. You need to know which assets are. You need to have a good classifications of asset, and mostly on the level of classify assets and your subcategory of asset. So, for example, if you have a pump, you need to know which type of pumps, because each type of pumps has their own separate maintenance regime, such as motors, even motors. They can be separated into kilowatt rating, as well as your variable frequency drives. Those will need to be informed as well. So you may have VFD main classification, then low wattage, high watt, and high power. Those would need to be further classification. Next is condition assessment. So you need to have a proper condition assessment. This would be like a good analysis of your failure modes and analysis. You can do it typically on rank 1 to 5. That's how I'm seeing it, in which 1 is a new asset, 5 is a really old and replaced the asset. A good condition assessment of the asset. So which means the people needs to be trained, as well as the specific criteria. For example, if the asset is new, that's 1. If the asset is used, that's 2. If the asset is okay, no signs of corrosion, that's 3. If the asset is like 10 years old, signs of corrosion but still working well, that's 4. If your asset is really unsure if it's going to operate, then you put that as 5. So those would be like the typical scales. Next, you do life cycle costing. And in here, you want to ensure, okay, how much budget would you allocate on the acquisition, on the design, how much budget would you need to operate and maintain, and this would be put on your spare parts management. Also include your efficiency as well. So those would need to be considered if it's on your asset management policy or asset management plan. For most of us, we're already going towards optimization, sustainability, and efficiency, and that's asset management by heart. So those would need to be considered as well. Next, we need to do performance measurements or KPIs. And likewise, this is needed because we need to do optimization down the line. And finally, disposal or replacements of assets. So asset salvaging, those would need to be considered. These factors, hopefully it's good enough in the factors in determining what is needed in determining or scoping out what is needed on per asset life cycle stage. Most of us would be on operation and maintain. Those would be 80%, but it would be important to consider as well on the beginning stages, such as project acquisition or asset creation, up until disposal, which means if disposal, warranty, or insurance is that, if that would be need to be considered on your CMMS system as well as your asset management plan. Okay, next we go to performance evaluation and improvement. And we have 20 minutes left. Thinking we can fit, I can answer some question. We have a question here. Question, baka you know of any success story of a company that earned ISO 55001? I mean, how they use their advantage or gains. Yes, I believe, do correct me on this one, Vince, if I'm wrong. I believe the only certified one is Aboitiz, ISO 55001.
Yes, actually, Mark, for those who are inquiring about the benefits or have actually gained any tangible advantage over the ISO 55000, and Mark is correct. In the Philippines, most of the ISO 55000 certified companies that is published on ISO website are mostly Aboitiz Group, from their Hydro Group, SN Aboitiz, and Headcore, and as well as their um, APRI, their, what do you call this? Their geothermal, and have recently as well posted that their Davao Light, their distribution, electric distribution business unit, have also acquired ISO 55000 recently. So, with regard to benefit, I will leave it to Mark to give his insights
Yeah.
about what are the tangible benefits based on his experience. And I will share mine naman regarding the ones that I have interviewed among my clients.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Vince. So typical advantages of ISO 55, I'll just lay this down on table, is that efficiency optimization, and those can mean a variety of things. If you haven't implemented a good spare parts management, a good business process that tackles everything, or maybe you don't know that you're lacking a process, then those would be concrete evidences in terms of asset management. Now, as for relating it to the balance sheet, it is heavily influenced. In local, most of it would be in maintenance and reliability, very limited on the beginning, operation, maintained, and salvaging stage. But for global companies, it's a regulatory requirement. And as well, it's actually needed because your competition has ISO 55K certification. So those would be it. Now, necessarily on local, only Aboitiz has certification, but a lot of companies are pursuing alignment and compliance. To give an example, I'm from water utility. Maynilad has pursued ISO 55001 compliance. And the main concrete advantages is they now have a fully functioning SAP system that can monitor and track their maintenance costs and assets, as well as their asset registering performance. They didn't have that before, which means having nothing to having something would give a tremendous advantage to your upper management leadership team. Now, currently, for the company I'm working for, I'm currently working in Manila Water. And if for those in the know, it's actually a publicly traded company, and it has been a major shareholder now is Razon Group, which also means it's under by ICTSI. Now, ICTSI is a global company, and they have a fully functioning asset management team on board, and as well as I don't know if their certification. If they're not, they're probably really close to one, or they have it. And they're pushing internal management in Manila Water to pursue asset management. Now, reasoning why. One of us was the internal driver. There's also like it's really good if you're attracting foreign shareholders or foreign investors outside of country. So in summary, in Philippines, it may not seem much. The really concrete benefits is implementing a process, an asset management process that you currently do not have yet, because that would be a major improvement, like zero nothing to something that you have, which is a tree. A next secondary approach would be is it's good for your competition, as well as it's good for your foreign investors. But those really are on the eyes of your business continuity department, your finance, and your internal auditing. And those answers could really only be answered by your upper management. That's for me, and I'll give the floor back to Vince. If
Yes,
you want
I
to
just
add.
want to add on that. We have recently presented in one company, and they did post the same question. Ang gusto ko lang iklaro that getting an ISO 55,000 certification does not guarantee anything, that you would be more reliable and all unless you put action into it. I think in my observation, talking to companies such as Aboitiz, from their, actually, I forgot to mention, even their uh, oil business unit, yung thermal diesel power plants nila are also registered as ISO 55,000 certified, together with Headcore, Davao Light, and SN Aboitiz, their hydro power plant. So I was saying that, napapansin ko, the benefit of being aligned, compliant, or certification, as a organization, there is a clear line of sight from the top management down to the shop floor, to the technician level. So in terms of organization development perspective, there's a good communication on how the assets will be managed based on, how should I say it, institutionalized asset management policy and their asset management plan. So that alone already benefits the entire organization in developing a culture, no, a culture of asset management. So with regard to the tangible on monetary, that's still yet to be um, published, in the sense, because I have checked with the insurance providers. It seems that's not yet in their purview, with regard to getting an ISO 55,000 that will have an effect on the ISO, I mean, insurance premiums. So that's just my take on that. Maybe some other organizations here for practitioners may have an idea about some benefits that you may have heard for those who have accomplished compliance, alignment, or certification?
Yep. Hello, hello. Yeah.
Okay.
In terms of insurance, I would also like to add that normally we submit insurance on lump sum, but if you have an asset management system, you can submit that in kumbaga tingi-tingi, which means you're able to get better claims because you can't claim on a 3% of a lump sum of an entire facility. It's very difficult. But you can do insurance claim if you declared per equipment. It's much easier. So that's one of the advantage of ISO 55. Okay, can we resume? Is it okay to resume? We
Yep.
have,
There are no more questions as of the moment.
yep, thank you. There's only a few more slides, so we can do it. We have a lot of time. So continuing on to KPIs and improvements, we need to identify the KPIs, and most would be really well familiar for this. This would be part of our monitoring in order to ensure how we can optimize or how we can increase better efficiency in the long run. Typical KPIs you see maybe uptime, downtime, mean time between failure, and TTR. Now, most of these, vast majority would most likely be specific depending on which industry sector you are. So if you're looking at benchmarking or world-class variables, you would need to refer that to specific literature. For KPIs, you can consider SMRP or you can ask around inside AMRPP if you're really curious on which KPIs you can consider. And of course, after that, you do analysis and reporting. You do a trend line history on your assets. Are they performing well or are they degrading down the line? In here, you have typical tools aside from Microsoft Excel or charting. You also have like your Power BI, your data sheets, being Microsoft or some others. And finally, after you set that up, you eventually go to world-class benchmarking. If you're in the energy, oil and gas, most likely you already have a benchmark standard to base off. If you're in the water industry sector, we can refer to Australia Water Management Works or the water group there. I think they recently did a benchmark, world-class benchmark parameters for, like I think 3 years or 4 years ago. So we have that data. On transportation, if you're doing airline, I'm unsure, but we can find it as well as other industry sectors. If you're curious if your industry sectors have benchmarking, feel free. We can collaborate as well as see if there are a group of organizations that represent your industry sector. As asset management practitioner professional, you need to be aware of those as well so that you can see where you are on your asset management journey. Doesn't need to be at the beginning, but maybe after you've gotten your quick wins, you've formulating a much more detailed long-term plan, you may want to look at your world-class KPIs. Okay. Okay. Then we finally go to ISO 55K back again. So we considered an asset management foundation, we've considered leadership and change management, we've done asset management policy, we've done asset management plan, we consider which assets we need to consider, and as well as how we manage specifically for each life cycle, since acquisition to operation to salvaging, and then we've gone through KPIs or monitoring tools that we can use. So now we go back to our ISO 55K, and here we need to make a choice. Do we do alignment? Do we do compliance? Or do we do certification? So before that, let's take a look first. So our asset management practitioners started way back in 1990. I believe the coin was termed around late 1998 or so to the beginning of 2000. But here, since most of us are using SMRP as standard, I'm putting it here. In 1992, Society of Maintenance and Reliability got established. In 1994, the Institute of Asset Management by IAM UK, and they typically roll out self-assessment tools as well as the big picture of IAM. They initially started coining the term asset management for culture change, leadership, and of course, the framework for the entire organization. In 1995, we had a good reference in PUEA International Infrastructure Management Manual, and this gives specific business cases, specific problems in the context of maintenance, reliability, and asset management, and it's typically one of the good standards that we use today or references. In 1997, SMRP certification was issued. They deemed it at SMRP Co. In 2008, we've got our first official PAS 55 or Asset Management Standard document. This is the British specification, public available specification by Asset Management PAS 55. On 2014, we've got our ISO 55 series. In 2014, again, we've also gotten our word partners in asset management. And this encompasses a lot of countries: Japan, Malaysia, Singapore, US, Canada, and hopefully soon, Philippines. And on 2022, we got our Association of Maintenance Reliability Practitioner in Philippines, and this will be the first pioneer here in the Philippines. And I'd like to give a good thank you to the AMRPP guys, because for us that initiated asset management in the Philippines, training is expensive. You need to rely on foreign organizations, and likewise, AMRPP now, or asset management, is much more accessible. Thank you to AMRPP. So we go forward and go back to asset management in ISO 55K. So ISO 55 is separated into three documents: 55,000, 55,001, and 55,002. 55,000 gives an overview of the subject of asset management. 55,001 gives a requirement of asset management, and 55,002 gives the guidelines on asset management. The up-to-date versions are 55,001, 55,000 and 55,001 as 2014, 55,000 is 2 is 2018, and I believe revision or update would be just on the horizon soon. ISO 55,001 is composed of these items. Now, this is accessible online. Feel free to access it. They give you like a big picture view. Feel free to buy the document. It isn't that expensive. Just buy one and just go through the shell requirements. Yeah, that's cheap. You can also opt to buy like the entire suit: 55,000, 55,001, and 55,002. The cheapest location, I believe, is if you go on to DIM UK site and buy the entire series on hand. So that's, or you can just go to ISO 55 to ISO website. Likewise, just be aware that there would be likely be a new version upcoming soon, though we don't expect any serious changes to the documents. Next, we align with ISO 55,001, and on ISO, you typically follow the the 001 document. The ISO 55,001, I believe there are 72 shell or requirements on ISO 55,000. You just go through with it, get the document, go through with the audit, or if there are terms that you are unsure, feel free to tune to us on our full webinar series to explain those, and as well as feel free to ask around within our organization. The ISO 55,001 model is PDCA, the Plan Do Check Act, and we just go through the context or what's indicated in the document. You need to adopt a business mindset for this, a business governance mindset, a business continuity mindset, but other than that, implementation would be okay. And finally, you go to certification and auditing. Now, you need to go to a certified third-party certification body, and those would likely be TUB or BS or something similar in the Philippines. PS, which means a British standard here in Philippines. If you're doing internal auditing, since you're not achieving for certification but only compliance, you can do so. The auditors are required to have a specific asset management certification, ISO 170215, which is the ISO for ISO assessors. And this all just includes that if you're assessing asset management, they need to have the CAMA or the CAMA or Certified Asset Management Assessor. Currently in the Philippines, I believe there are like 11 or 12, so we're a lot now. I started in 2018. Erwin is one. We have CAMA or CAMA certified assessors in the organization. Feel free to tap them. I know that organization will be glad to assist a fellow member. Likewise, I have provided some reading materials here. Feel free to tap. I believe you will be given the presentation slides, so feel free to look over through it. And we'd go to Q&A, and we're good in time. If there's any question, feel free. And
Yeah.
hopefully this is beneficial for your time. Giving the room back to Vince.
Thank you very much, Mark. But before we end the presentation, there was a last question from Michael Guerrero
Mhm.
about the adoption of ISO 55000 in the Philippines.
Mhm.
And yes, there are some already organizations who are certified on the published list of ISO 55000 companies. We have Aboitiz, Headcore, we have Aboitiz. If I would like share here, you will see on ISO website that there are Aboitiz Power Oil Business Unit, Headcore, and SN Aboitiz, Benguet, and Magat. Recently, Aboitiz also announced their Davao Light being ISO certified. But as mentioned kanina ni Mark, may mga organizations who do not feel the need to be certified because of a different reason perhaps, but they also would like to be aligned or compliant.
And
So
there are a
that's
lot of companies that follow alignment and compliant,
yes.
just not certified yet because
Yes.
yeah, regulatory requirement or other factors, the drivers, you need to consider those.
Right. So I hope that answers your question, Michael. And I would like to switch my presentation to thanking Mark. No, let me stop my presentation and can we give Mark a big round of applause, a virtual round of applause for our first installment of our asset management. I hope marami kayo natutunan. This is just the first of the series of webinars we are doing. And thank you again very, very much. Welcome. Um, there is a suggestion from Billy about a mentorship program. Yes, that's a possibility, and that's why I would like to invite everyone to be part of the association because you see naman that, by collaborating, networking and getting together on a shared vision for us, like what we have mentioned in association, to be the premier organization in the asset management, reliability engineering, asset integrity, and maintenance, equipment maintenance. Together as Filipino practitioners, we can do it. No? And on that, I would like to share once again our um, our call for membership. So if I may request before I switch my screen, can we have a group picture? If you have a camera, can we do a group photo? Okay. Ayan, nice to see. Nice to see these handsome faces, no? All right. So what I am going to do is I will just take a screenshot, okay? And then we'll share that over to our social media. Ding Dong, do you have a camera? Okay. Can I request again, Ding Dong and Edwin, to turn on your camera so we can take a short group photo? Okay, I'll do it now. Okay, on 3, 1, two. Okay, hold on. All right. Wait. Okay, there we go. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you,
And
Vince. Thank you, everyone.
again, I would like to call your attention to be a member, no? Be a member of the association, and we hope to have you in our next um, series of webinars. So if you have any questions or clarifications, I would like to invite you to send us a message via email or to our social media pages. So sa mga members dito na are actively collaborating with us, thank you very much. And I'll take this as a sending you off and have a safe weekend, restful weekend. And once again, thank you so much, Mark, for your support. And we'll keep in touch with everyone on the next installment of our webinar series. Thank you, everyone, and God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Everyone.